Well, hi there everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kareth. Today's recipe is for another meal in a jar. This one is for fettuccine alfredo with grilled chicken, and I am going to be using the grilled chicken dices from Thrive Life in this recipe. Now you could use a different type of pasta, but I love the fettuccine in this one. I like how it kind of holds up under the cooking time, and it also holds onto a lot of the sauce. Now I'm going to be making the broccoli on the side because not everyone in my family likes broccoli, but if y'all all like broccoli, you could definitely put the broccoli into this recipe. I'll show you that later on. I'll let you know when you could add that broccoli. All right, let's start with a quart size jar. This is going to give you 4 good size servings. And into that jar, I have already put the fettuccine noodles. All I did was I broke them in half and put them into the quart jar. Now you can add just as much chicken as you like. I'm saying somewhere between 1 and 1.5 cups, but that's totally up to you. And then all you have to do is add the kosher salt. And basically what that is going to do is flavor the water as your noodles cook in the water. All right, you can add an oxygen absorber, and that's all there is to the first jar. The second jar is for the Alfredo sauce, and this is a pint-sized jar. And into that, we're just going to put several powders to make a pretty yummy Alfredo sauce. If you've seen my $1 million spaghetti recipe, you've seen my Alfredo sauce recipe. So in there is going to go some bechamel, some heavy cream powder, butter powder. I'm also going to add some garlic powder into this. Now you can put as much as you like. I'm adding half a teaspoon here. And then we're going to top that off with our freeze-dried Parmesan cheese, about half a cup of that. And yes, I am aware that you can buy jarred shelf-stable Alfredo sauce. I know that, but I don't really like the ingredients of the jarred sauces, and I don't like the ingredients of the packages of the mixes either. I like to know exactly what I'm putting in my food, and this is not a diet recipe by any means, but it's real food, and I just like knowing what's in my food. All right, I'm excited to share this recipe with you. So this is for my artisan bread. I've been making this for about 14 years. I first came across the recipe online, and the original recipe is called Artisan Bread in 5 minutes a day. I love the fact that it's just 4 ingredients. It's flour, yeast, salt, and water. That's it. Now, in the past year, I figured out that I can make big batches of the mix, keep it on my pantry shelf, and just pull it out and make 1 loaf at a time. Each of these loaves is about a 1-pound loaf, so that's plenty for my family. I like being able to reach into the pantry, grab my gallon-sized mason jar, and just get out the mix for 1 loaf at a time. Now, when you put yeast into a mix that you're going to keep on your pantry shelf, just be aware of the expiration date on it. So when you buy this to make this recipe, make sure you're getting something that has a really good expiration date on it, and just be aware of that. I've not kept this on my shelf for longer than a year, so just keep that in mind. And yes, the yeast goes into the mix with the salt. I've never had any trouble with it. If this dough had like a 10% salt ratio, that I would worry about, but it doesn't. It has a really small amount of salt and with a lot of flour. The salt does not kill the yeast. It's fine. So don't worry about that. Now, this dough does need to be really good and hydrated. So when I make this loaf, I start by adding 3/4 cup of water, and I usually end up adding more, but I add it 1 tablespoon at a time and I stir. So what you're looking for is a dough that is really kind of tacky. You want it a little bit wet. You don't want any streaks of flour in there. You want it to be kind of sticking to the bowl. So if you'll notice, that is the texture that you're looking for. See? It's got some stickiness to it. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want with this loaf. So what you want to do is cover this with plastic wrap and you're going to let it set for 2 hours. Now, after this initial 2-hour rise, you can either put that in the fridge and leave it for up to 2 weeks, or you can bake it. I'm going to bake it today. After 2 hours, just take a look at that bread dough. Doesn't that look marvelous? It's got lots of bubbles. It's at least doubled in size, and it's nice and wet. That's exactly what you're looking for. Okay, so go ahead and preheat your oven to 425. Get out some parchment paper and sprinkle that with some cornmeal. I like to put a little flour down there too. You just don't want it to stick to the parchment paper, really. And then I also like to put some flour on the top of the dough and definitely flour my hands. So all you have to do is turn the dough out onto the parchment paper, and it'll be really pretty sticky, pretty tacky, and that's fine. That's what you want. So just get that out onto the parchment paper, onto your cornmeal, and it's gonna stick a little bit, and that's fine. That's perfect, in fact. That's exactly what you're looking for. So flour the top of your dough, gently pick it up, and all you want to do is tuck under the sides. So you're looking for more of a smooth top and tucked under. Okay, that's exactly what you want, is a kind of a round shape. Sprinkle the top with flour and then cut you several, maybe 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch deep slits in the top of your loaf. And what you're really doing here is you're giving it room to vent. So as that loaf rises, especially when it hits the oven heat, it's going to need a place to expand, and these slits will give it room. Okay, and I did trim my parchment paper just because the baking stone that I have in my oven is small, and I thought it would fit better. Okay, so do make sure you put your baking stone in your oven. Mine is a Pampered Chef baking stone that I got at Goodwill. My oven was not quite preheated yet, so I'm going to let that sit on my countertop and focus on the fettuccine Alfredo. So we're going to start with the fettuccine noodles and the chicken. So get out a large pot or a Dutch oven and empty out the contents of your jar into your pot. And to that, you're going to add about 4.5 cups of water. It really kind of depends on the size of your pot. What you're really looking for is you want your noodles to be completely submerged in the water. So put enough water, I'm going to say 4.5 cups because that worked for my Dutch oven, but put enough water to where the fettuccine is completely covered in water, but you don't want too much in there or else it'll be just too liquidy when you add the sauce. But go ahead and bring that to a boil. All right, now it hasn't been but maybe 10 minutes or so, and look at how much that bread has expanded. So see where we cut those slits? And it is continuing to rise on the countertop. I just think that is beautiful bread dough. I love it so much. This is a family favorite. Everybody loves this bread. All right, now that my oven is preheated, I'm going to show you how I put it in there. So I just bring out the rack just a little bit, the rack with the baking stone, and I put that bread dough straight on there. And then underneath there, I've got a pan that I put in the oven maybe 5 minutes ago. It's good and hot, and I'm putting 1 cup of hot water in there. Close that oven, and you need to bake it at 425 for about 25 minutes or so, just until it's dark as you like it to be. Now let's focus on the Alfredo sauce. So into the carafe of my blender, I'm putting 2¼ cups of water. I just put that in the bottom so the powders don't stick down there. That's just how I do it. All right, and then to the water, you're going to add your Alfredo sauce jar. So that's a bunch of powders and that freeze-dried Parmesan cheese. And all we're going to do here is blend it. And the reason I like to blend it is because I don't like lumps in my Alfredo sauce. And also, it does a really good job of just making sure that Parmesan cheese is nice and small. And if it's nice and small, then it melts easier in your sauce. So this is the consistency that you're looking for in your Alfredo sauce. It's thickened up. It's not, as thin as water, but it's not too thick. That's just what you're looking for there. And you can just set that to the side, and we'll pour that into the noodles as soon as they are ready. All right, so as you're bringing this up to a boil, you'll definitely want to stir this from the bottom just to make sure your noodles are not sticking to your pan. And you just need to boil that until it's al dente, about 12 minutes or so. And when most of that liquid has evaporated, that's when you add your Alfredo sauce. And you do need to bring that up to a boil and let it simmer until it's thickened. And that, it just depends on how much liquid is in there and how thick you like your sauce. But it might take another, 5 or 10 minutes or so to get that Alfredo sauce to the consistency you like it. All right, in the meantime, let's focus on the broccoli. Now, if everybody in my family liked broccoli, I would pour that straight into the Alfredo sauce and just let it cook in there because that's good as well. But not everybody likes broccoli. There's just a couple of us that are going to eat it. So I'm going to prepare this on the side, and I'm going to show you how I make it to where it tastes like roasted broccoli without actually having to roast it in the oven. What I do is I add some water because, okay, it's freeze dried. It has to hydrate first. And once that water has cooked off, then I make a little well and I add 1 or 2 tablespoons of olive oil in there. And then you can season this up however you like, salt and pepper, whatever. And then definitely give it a stir because you want to make sure all of the broccoli is coated in the oil. And then you're just going to saute it just for a few minutes. But I like to stir it and then leave it alone. Let it sit until it gets to however brown I want it to be. I like it to really char, actually. So this is how brown I like mine. And I just left it alone for maybe 4 minutes. And that's what it looks like. Turn off the heat and it's ready. All right, let's look at our beautiful loaf of artisan bread. You can take that out of your oven. I think after about 10 minutes, I removed the parchment paper to make sure the bottom of it got nice and crispy. And isn't that gorgeous? Oh my goodness, y'all. It is so delicious. It's beautiful. It's just like something you get from a bakery. And how simple was that? Just 4 ingredients. I am in love with artisan bread. I just adore it. All right, so now I'm back to the Alfredo sauce. This is the consistency that I like mine. See how nice and thick it is? And after you turn off the heat there, it will continue to thicken a little bit more, so keep that in mind. Go ahead and give it a taste. See if you need to add anything. I added just a pinch of salt to mine. And definitely taste the noodles. Make sure they're the right tenderness for you, and test that chicken as well. Mine was ready, so I turned off the burner. After about 10 minutes of resting, you can go ahead and slice your loaf of artisan bread. This is how I always do mine. I cut it in half first, and just look at that gorgeous loaf. See all the little bubbles in there from the air rising and the yeast doing its job. The bottom and the top are nice and crunchy. It's got a crunchy exterior and a really soft middle. So anyway, I set that flat on the cut edge, and then I slice. And I'm sorry, my ugly fat fingers are in the way there. This is a better angle. That is how I slice my bread. And if by some miracle you have some leftovers, this makes the best grilled cheese sandwiches ever. Oh, it's so good. It's good with some butter, of course, and it's fantastic with my garlic olive oil dip. I will link that below. I have a video for that. It's a YouTube short video, and it's wonderful. All right, time to plate up our masterpiece. And this is what your fettuccine Alfredo will look like after it's sat for probably 5 minutes or so. They say to twist it to make it fancy. I'm being fancy for y'all. All right, and then you can just put the broccoli right there next to it. And like I said, there's only 2 of us that are going to eat the broccoli, so I only made about 1.5 cups of broccoli. I like to dress this just very simply, maybe a sprig of basil, some fresh cracked black pepper, and that's it. That is our fettuccine Alfredo with grilled chicken dices. And isn't it spectacular? Oh my goodness, just look at that. Okay, the broccoli is so good with this. I love it with the broccoli. And that gorgeous artisan bread. Doesn't that just look like something you would have gotten from a restaurant? Can you believe we made that from our food stores? Oh gosh, it's amazing to me what can be done with freeze-dried food and good technique. The Alfredo sauce is nice and rich and creamy and cheesy. I think y'all are really gonna like this one. I would suggest you try this recipe, see if you like it, and then make adjustments to the flavor profile. If you want more Parmesan cheese in there, put more. If you want some spice, add a little red pepper flake or cayenne. You could add Italian seasoning to this. Whatever your preference is, you can do whatever you like. I like the classic Alfredo. I think it's fantastic just with the simple flavors that we've put in there, but it's totally up to you. And yes, that is a delicious plate of food right there. Okay, guys, thank y'all so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. I will leave the full recipe in the description box below, as well as my shopping link and my website as well. If you are interested in more recipes for meals in jars and you want to have those just at your fingertips, I have written a cookbook. I just released it, and you can find the cookbook of meals in jars on my website. I have more than 90 recipes in that book. It's a beautiful book. I think you'll really enjoy it. It's an ebook, so you can download it to multiple devices, and then you could print out any recipes that you are interested in. Okay, guys, thank y'all so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. God bless you. I hope you have a wonderful day. And until next time, y'all take care and keep thriving.